It was the idea to do a voice assistant, to have a conversation with this, little guy on your shoulder that, you could ask something and it would come back with results. So we created the assistant, and 10 years later, the company Siri was created, and it was acquired by Apple, by Steve Jobs.
Welcome to 31C Data Talk. Today's guest is Dr. Luc JULIA. He co-invented technology behind Siri, later on acquired by Apple, led the innovation at Samsung, and most recently was a chief scientist at Renault Group, building AI into cars at one of the biggest automaker in the world. He also the author of a book arguing that artificial intelligence, as we know it, is no longer exist. Please welcome Dr. Luc JULIA. Enchanté. Pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Yaron.
So for those who don't know you yet, can you please introduce yourself?
Well, I'm a French engineer. I moved into Silicon Valley 35 years ago, and I did 10 years of research around AI and what we used to call the connected objects, so IoT. And then I did 10 years of startups in the Valley, and then 10 years of large companies in the Silicon Valley as well, HP, Apple, Samsung. And then I started my 10 years of large companies in France with Renault, the Renault Group that you mentioned. And next, I don't know, we'll see.
Wow. Impressive. So you worked with major tech companies. So you really helped build the technology behind Siri. What was like watching the entire industry chasing something you were working on 20 years ago?
Actually, it was 30 years ago. I mean, it was in the 90s that we were working on something that led to Siri. So it was at SRI, Stanford Research Institute. We were doing it was the beginning of the internet, right? And there was no Google, there was nothing like that. And what we wanted to do, we wanted to have kind of an assistant that was going to help us to navigate this internet. And it was the idea to do a voice assistant, an assistant to which, you could ask something and it would find it on the internet and come back with results. So it was the idea at the time. And so we created what we call the assistant. And later, 10 years later, the company Siri was created. And a few years later, it was acquired by Apple, by Steve Jobs. So it was, very a long time ago. And it was the very first, after all, voice assistant that was really doing something.
What year are we talking about? What year was that?
So it was 97 was the years we were working at SRI on that. So 97, 2000. Then the company was formed by Adam Shire and other people in 2007. And it was acquired by Apple in 2010. And I ran it at Apple in 2011.
Impressive. Did you ever imagine it will be what we have today, where we just having conversation with?
No, I mean, we were imagining something like that in the sense that we were imagining to have a conversational agent. It was the idea to have a conversation with this, little guy on your shoulder that you could, talk to. At the time, I mean, even Siri today is not this conversational agent, right? We could ask a question, it comes back with an answer. Now, with the new AIs that we see for the past 2-3 years, with the new AIs, we have some real conversational agents. So 20, 30 years ago, we imagined that it would be possible, but we didn't have it yet.
Yeah. So in your book, you're mentioning like AI is not even real. So not at least as we see it. So what exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah. So this book was written in 2020 and the title was There is no such thing as AI. What it means is that there is a confusion, about artificial intelligence and intelligence. And the issue is that people, give a lot of credit to artificial intelligence by thinking that it's intelligent, whatever intelligence means. We don't know exactly what intelligence means. So back then, when the term artificial intelligence was coined, it was back in 1956 that it was coined, right? That it was used for the first time. And back then, we were hoping to create machines that were going to be as intelligent as humans. So it was the idea. But we never got that. I mean, the machines that we have, they are not as broad as what we are. They are very good at some very specific things, but they are better than us at some very specific things. but we cannot say that they are intelligent like we are. It's not the same thing. So the confusion is about intelligence. So that's why I say there is no one artificial intelligence that is general, but there are a lot of artificial intelligences, a lot of domains in which those tools, because after all, they are only tools, a lot of domains in which those tools, they are better than us. And that's from the beginning of the AIs, right? I mean, if we created the tools to do the things better than us by definition of the tool. The hammer is better than me to drive a nail in the wall. That's why it's a good tool. But I can use the hammer to do the right thing, drive the nail in the wall, or I can use the tool to do the wrong thing, drive a screw in the wall. And the screw in the wall with a hammer is not a good idea. So
yeah,
that's what we need to understand, is that there is no one artificial intelligence. And this is what I mean. There are many, many, many artificial intelligences, and they are, by definition of tools, better than us.
Interesting. I heard a philosophical saying, that just like humans discover fire, they didn't invent fire. They discover electricity, they didn't invent electricity. Do you believe we discover AI and we didn't create AI?
I wouldn't say that we discovered AI, because AI is purely mathematics. So it's based on mathematics. Since the beginning of AI, 70 years ago, it's only mathematics. It used to be statistics. It didn't work at the time very well. Then it became logic, what we call all the engines that were based on logic, that were doing, those decision trees, if, then. I mean, it was based on logic. And we have all those extra systems, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, that were very good, based on logic. So still mathematics. And then for the past now 30 years, back in the 80s, 90s, we went back to statistics, because we have now a lot of data. It's all based on data, statistics, and it's only mathematics. So we put a lot of data on those things, and we average basically what is in those data. And then we decide to make decisions according to those data, and what happened in the past. So that is not really something that we discovered. It's something that we created, in the sense that we created based on mathematics and on the past.
And if I'm not mistaken, you compare it to a calculator. Do you still see it that way?
Yeah, of course. So the calculator is interesting. The calculator, it was in 1492 or something like that we invented the 1642 that we invented the calculator, right? It was Pascal that invented the first calculator that was called the Pascaline. And it was just a logical, piece of hardware that was allowing us to do addition and subtractions. So we invented, the calculator. We didn't discover the calculator.
Yeah, I agree with that. So you were in Renault, basically turning a car company into a tech company. I assume it's not easy to turning a legacy company into a tech company.
Yeah, to be fair, Renault was working, on AI and other, advanced technologies for a long time, right? They had somewhere of AIs and other technologies, especially in the factories, right? So they have robots for a long, long time, right? So they were already kind of open to some of those technologies. They were less open to have those technologies in the car themselves. So what we brought basically is to say, we could also bring, those technologies to the people that are going to own the cars, in order to have whatever they are used to on their computers, their phones, and so on. So we could also have something like, we see the Chinese and other companies doing some very advanced cars, that look very cool because they have all those technologies. So there was a little bit of reticence, a little bit of people that were saying, okay, no, we don't know how to do it and so on. And we don't have the right GPU, CPU, or whatever in the cars. So, it was difficult in the sense that they were not used to, and they were not sure that they could do it. But in about 3 years, we succeeded, to push some of those technologies in the factories, in actually the company itself, in some of the domains, in some for the sales, for the marketing, for the designers, the jobs themselves. And then we also succeed to push something in the car, to push an avatar actually. So an avatar, an assistant that was, in the car helping people that are going to drive this car and to explaining what is the difference basically between a gasoline car and an electric car.
So you've built products that used by hundreds of millions of people around the world, from Siri to Samsung to Renault, Apple. What do you feel like people don't understand exactly on this mass use of technology?
I think that the technology that I try to build, and that I try to create for people is technology that is going to be easy to use, and so they are going to be understood very well. And when you have, Siri, for instance, was very interesting because it's kind of easy to understand. Just to this thing, and it answers you, right? So you need to find the right use case in order to be something that people are going to be excited about. And Siri was interesting because, right away, about 180 million people used it, in 2011. And then today, it's something like 500 million using it on a weekly basis. So that's because it's easy, right? So what I try to do is very simple technology. It's what I call the technology for real people. And the very first real people that I know is myself. So I create technology for myself, basically. And even in the startups that I created, back in 2000 years, those startups, were solving problems that I had myself. And so trying to do something that was going to be very easy in terms of technology, to hide actually the technology in order to show off the use case and the way we solve the use case. So it was always the way, I saw how to bring some products to the real people. And it was the same thing, at HP with the connected printers. Connected printers, were interesting because at the time before that, it was printers. You needed to connect them, to the computer and to be next to the computer and then print. And then, with the connected printer, the Wi-Fi connected printers, you were able to, from any device, send something over the air that was going to be printed, being in your home or somewhere else. And it was something, that became natural. And even the printer could have a life of itself by just printing stuff sometimes, that is going to be every day, your crosswords or whatever, that are going something that, you don't even think about, and it happens. And this is the kind of use cases that we developed, for any of those different domains, being printers, phones, or for Samsung, it was the smart home.
It's unbelievable. So how do you measure success across those industries? From car, tech, printers?
Yeah, success is complicated to measure. It's not complicated when it's out. When it's out, it works or it doesn't work. Success is by the number of people that are using the technology, right? So when I come back to the startups, for instance, that I was talking about, some of the startups that I did, were too early. And so we had a few 100,000 users, or maybe some of them, tens of millions of users, but not a lot, right? Compared to the hundreds of millions of users that we can have with, HP or Apple or something. So the success depends. It can be a success of the popularity of whatever you are creating, or it can be a success of the technology, something that you succeed to do that was the world first. The startups that I created back in 2000, it was a lot of world first, not a lot of users. But after it was, taken back by bigger companies in order to make that, something that is going to be a success. It was also a success for the companies that I created. It was a success for the companies that use the same kind of technology later. So it's complicated. If you ask me today, what is the thing that I'm the most proud about? It's not the thing that has the most popular success, but it's the company that I created back in 2002 that was called Orb, that had an incredible technology, asset that was just unbelievable. It's why we created something that was incredible. It was impossible at the time, but we did it. And it came to the light of for some other companies, only almost 10 years later. But this is the technology that we built and that I'm the most proud about.
Wow, that's beautiful. So you've been involved in so many projects, and obviously you're different. Obviously you're bringing something new to the table that nobody else is. What do you think separates you from the pack? Is it a philosophy degree? Is it mathematics? Reverse engineering a little bit backwards your brain, and so people can understand a little bit about what takes to be behind the scene of all these amazing innovations.
First of all, as I said before, the very first thing is to put myself in the shoes of the real people. I'm a real guy, right? So I'm trying to do something that is going to help myself, and to try to do something that is going to help myself like a good engineer, in the sense that I'm also, I don't want to make a lot of efforts. So I'm lazy. And so it has to be easy to use. It has to be natural. It has to, I don't have to understand what is behind the thing. I don't want to know, I want to just the thing to render a service that is going to be, good, and that is going to be obvious. So this is the very first thing. The secret, if there is one, I'm not sure I have a secret, but if there is a secret, it's really to, look at what exists already in some of the domains and try to apply that on other domains. So I wouldn't call that reverse engineering, but I would call that twisting engineering, right? So where I'm going to look at an issue and, find that it's a very difficult problem that we didn't find, and having some other people that are going to be different from myself, going to come with me to look with their own prisms, with their own, eyes, with their own background to this problem, and bring whatever background they have to try to solve this problem with other solutions than the ones that we were trying to use for the past, 20, 100 years, or whatever, to solve this very problem. And then, bring those other technologies, those other domains, those other, ways to see the things, to try to fix that. And that's
Interesting.
That's to twist. We didn't really invent anything. Of course, there are all those patents and stuff, and we can be very proud of that. But the invention in this case is more for me like twisting than really, coming up with something incredible like, Einstein would do it. I'm not a genius. No, it's just something is not coming like that to me, like light, coming from the sky. No, it's just trying to be very pragmatic and trying to solve the issues with other ways than the ones that we used before.
I think it's a true definition of creative, like being able to combine two things that usually are not combined together. I heard Ronaldinho that says he used to learn NBA plays and bringing it to soccer and football. And so that's part of his creativity. So if we're talking about creativity, I heard you said that computers are not creative, but they're able to create music, arts, and things that artists do. So how do we address that?
Yeah, so I have a vocabulary issue again, like I had a vocabulary issue with artificial intelligence and the word intelligence. I have a vocabulary issue with the word creativity. When you just said that computers are creating, music and blah, blah, blah. Actually, they are not creating anything. They are generating what we are telling them to generate. So we are the creators. Okay. So those machines, those AIs, and I wrote this book, the recent book that is called The AI Illusion. The AI Illusion is talking about creativity specifically and explaining that AI is actually not creative. AI is a good helper for my creativity. AI by itself doesn't create anything. AI by definition, and this is why we call that Gen AI. It's generative AI. AI generates. It generates whatever we decide. We tell them, we ask them to generate. Our creativity is in the prompts that we are doing in order to generate those things. When I'm going to generate an image, that use an AI to generate a new image, and that could be an art piece, at the end. But I'm going to have to generate the prompts, to create the prompts myself, in order to generate those things. And if it's not exactly what I want, I'm going to move and to change the prompts. And little by little, I'm going to have those AIs, generating in front of me whatever my words, whatever what my mind, created, and that I did verbalize through my prompts, that are going to be generated like that. So it's a new way of creativity that now I can create anybody. I'm very bad at drawing myself, but now I'm very good at creating drawings with the tool of AI, with some of those tools, that we have, available today, because I'm able to verbalize whatever I see in my mind that I want to have. And then, this verbalization is going to generate what I want. And I can at any time modify any little thing. And my, final drawing is going to be something that might have been generated by, hundreds of prompts. But that's fine. It's the process of creating. I created, the I generated. And the same thing for music. It's the same thing for the text. We have to understand that all those AIs, as I said, being the Gen AIs, the ones that we are talking about for the past 4 years, all those AIs, they are based on data that obviously already exists. Okay? This is why we are talking about models. They have all those data that are creating the models. So the models, by definition, they are models. And so I can, take those models, modify them. But this act of modification, a little bit like what we were saying before about the act of creating new technologies, modifying those models is my act of creation.
Where do you take your inspiration from?
I don't know. I take my inspiration from the people, from, the world that is around us. And from, I try to be always at the top of whatever is out, and I read a lot of the latest technologies, the latest trends. I don't understand everything, especially, around some of the chemical and medical and, there are a lot of domains that I don't get, that I don't understand, but whatever I can catch, and understand in those different domains, I try to see if, I can contribute in any way, to make things easier, better, and useful to myself, and then, to the people.
Becoming an observer, right? Like as comedians usually say, like they observe life. They have just like a different way of seeing it. So they find the funny things in every small things that we just see every day.
Yeah, and this is by finding those little issues that you have every day, or the big issues that you can see, somewhere that you try to, maybe you see, maybe I can, take this one. I have to tell you, before working at Renault, I didn't know anything about cars. Zero, zip, and I was not interested in cars, but I was interested in the fact that I knew that some people were struggling, to go from the old generations of cars to the new generation with all those electronics, that was too much. And trying to simplify that, for me, was one of the goals.
Can you share with us a book that had the most impact on you?
I don't know. It's not a book about, technology. But it's not a book about AI. It's not, and it's not one book, I think, but there are a lot of writers, that I like very much. And one in particular is Victor Hugo, a Frenchman. And Victor Hugo wrote Notre-Dame de Paris. There is another one that's called Les Misérables, which I think is the same word in English as well. So, those stories, there is a lot of different pieces, and there is a lot of philosophy in this thing, philosophy of life.
Why specific this book, Notre-Dame de Paris?
Because, it's a story of this guy that is banned from the society, that is very nice, who wants to be very nice, but cannot be very nice because of this physical, way to be. And so, there is all the social interactions and all the weight of how the society sees, the people, and all that is interesting to me.
Beautiful. If you can give us the viewers any tip of how to implement AI and innovation in their company, what would it be?
So, I mean, the good news about the last generation of AIs, right? I mean, the Gen AIs that we're talking about. I mean, we know every day there is a new thing, about those AIs. I mean, it's going to be rugged, it's going to be whatever. So, I mean, the reality is that those AIs, they don't do anything without us, right? So it means that we decide how to use them, and we decide how they can, be used by the people in general. If we want to use AI ourselves, if we want to be there are two ways. We can be users or we can be actors right now on these things. If we want to act in the world of AI, the very first thing we have to do is to understand mathematics. So, as I said before, AI is about mathematics. If we want to act upon, AIs and to understand what it is, statistics, mathematics is, key. So we need to learn that. And then, all the languages, the logic, the thing and so on, it would come, easy. So that's the part. If we want to play with it, if we want to understand and play with it with everyday's life, I mean, we can start to play very easily with the world of agents, what we call the agents today, and in particular, with those agents that are going to help us to build stuff. We can build very simple things ourselves with the help of AIs. Of course, we need to be careful of the way they are going to answer because they don't answer always the right thing. So we need to be critical enough to, when we start to have a dialogue with those AIs, we need to be critical enough to know enough about what we are asking. If you are asking to build a website, for instance, you have to know what website you have in mind, in order to be sure that it's going to create and to generate for you the right website. But you are going to be able to generate this website, by just talking with this AI, and you are going to see, little by little doing that. It can be something that is going to help you with your groceries. It can be anything. So working with AIs and having those agents, choosing the right agent to do some very specific things is something that is interesting. If you want to code, something like open code or cloud code or whatever, this is the kind of thing that is very interesting, pretty easy to use. But again, it's not because it's easy to use that it's going to generate something that is going to be good. So you need to have a minimum of knowledge about whatever the end product is in order to be sure that it's going to generate whatever you want.
No, it's a great tip. So observation, critical thinking, creativity, and I think if you look at throughout history, that's always the main pillars that we need in order to thrive and to innovate, right?
Yeah, we need to be careful, to also not dive head first, in the trends and in the news and in the bad news. For instance, when you hear that those AIs are rogue, and that they can do anything and that they're going to kill us all to replace our jobs and so on. It was 2-3 years ago that, we had, again, those studies saying that 30 million people are going to lose their jobs to AI, blah, blah, blah. And of course, it didn't happen. And of course, it won't happen. And when you look at the history, and this is where history, as you said, is very interesting, is that when you look at history, every time there is a new technology that is going to be, a very impactful technology, like internet, like, electricity, like the engines or whatever. Every time there is something new, I mean, we are afraid of it. And we have people that have interest in making us, having fear of those things or being too confident about those technologies. So when you look at the internet, for instance, 25 years ago, you had the exact same studies saying that the internet was going to take, 20 million people jobs. Of course, it didn't happen. It created some jobs. No. And it's going to be the same thing with AI. So little by little, we, after 2-3 years now, starting to calm down a little bit. After all those, predictions that were totally ridiculous, it's starting to calm down by saying, okay, after all, it's not giving us a productivity jump, that it was supposed to give us, that some people told us that it's going to give us, because it was their interest to tell us that, because they could, raise more money and do more things. So every time there is a new technology, and in particular, for people who know the technology and who are working on those technologies or this kind of technologies for a while, I mean, my approach is always, to calm down, to say, okay, I mean, be critical, have the critical thinking that you are talking about. That is very, very important, you know. I mean, it's not a revolution. It's an evolution. And every time it's an evolution, even though you have some people that want to tell you that it's a revolution because it's their interest, could be bad or good, but, you know, on both sides, there are going to be people that are going to be interested in having the thing, you know, saying that it's great or saying that it's bad. It's never, you know, black and white. It's always something in the middle. So calm down, look at, you know, what are the applications that are interesting. And at the end of the day, all the big affirmations and the big thing that it's going to change everything. I mean, okay, be careful and look at the history. Turn back, look at what happened 20 years, 100 years ago. And you know, the real revolution, you know, back in the 19th century. I mean,
Yeah. So it's evolution.
yeah, the humanity, at the end of the day, this is helping us. And this is, you know, making us better. And this is the lesson. Of course, there are a lot of technologies and a lot of things that, and AI, also the Gen AI, can be used to do wrong things, like any tools. I was talking about the hammer at the beginning. I can use the hammer to, you know, put it on your head. I can do that. No one is, you know, preventing me to do it. The law is preventing me to do it, but I can be outlaw, right? So I decide, I have the handle of the hammer in my hand. I decide to do the right thing, use it for the nail, or to do the wrong thing to hit your head. So that's whatever tool technology is always good and bad. But at the end of the day, it's not the technology itself that is good or bad. It's me.
It's the person who uses it. Beautiful. Dr. Luc JULIA, merci beaucoup. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.